Paid just 20 to sabotage a date, she unexpectedly captured the heart of a millionaire CEO. Emma stood behind the counter at the Blue Moon Diner, the rhythmic clatter of plates and chatter of regulars filling the air. Oblivion, she thought. Here, behind the familiar facade of chipped linoleum tables and the comforting aroma of coffee, she could pretend for a moment that her life wasn't a tightrope walk of financial chaos and profound heartbreak. Her mother needed care, the bills seemed to multiply, and as much as she loved wielding a spatula, dreams of paint and canvas loomed like distant stars. Desperation squeezed her chest, tightening the spaces in between her ribs. $20, they said, just for some harmless fun, chaos disguised as charity. But Emma hesitated. Was she really willing to cross that line? A slapstick plan unfolded, absurdly simple: disrupt a millionaire's blind date, rattle him enough so that he wouldn't notice what in the grand scheme of Emily's day-to-day struggles was an inconsequential affair. Yet she shivered at the thought of deceit. Every interaction mattered, didn't they? Yet the weight of her obligations pressed down, urging her toward a choice that felt both like a necessity and a moral compromise. Could she stomach being that person, the one who thrived on another's misfortune? The faces of her mother, saddled by years of illness, flickered in her mind, their sacrifice intertwining with her dreams. The hours dragged until the evening, and just like a warped sense of fate, she found herself in an upscale restaurant, an alien world thick with silk ties and polished stilettos. As she whispered witty jabs and slipped a few reckless quips between sips of cocktails, she was swept away by a sudden dread. What if she couldn't pull this off? What if, instead of sabotage, she ended up accidentally grasping something profound? Guilt was a dark cloud on her psyche, but she had come this far. The thought of heading back empty-handed made her stomach churn. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the evening sun dipped, positioning itself perfectly for her next mischief, Emma accidentally caught Ethan's glance. His smirk, as charming as it was disarming, began to unravel the threads of her constructed facade. She laughed, flirted, all the while her thoughts warred against each other. Should she ditch the prank? The complications, the lies, they were bursting like confetti in her mind. And every chuckle emanating from Ethan tugged at her heart, deeper into realms of connection she dared not explore. Yet, temptation burgeoned as the night grew intimate, and behind every punchline, the depth of her truth felt like a chasm. His world loomed vastly over hers, opulence and understanding hummed with stark differences while she swam in a sea of necessity. What would he think if he sensed her duplicity? Emma wrestled with the notion of unveiling her reality, terrified that the very truth that grounded her would turn his gaze away, measuring who was worthy against the weight of their differences. Around her, laughter danced with elegant dinners and sparkling conversations, but beneath Emma's affable facade lay a swell of anguish. As the universe pressed forward, caught in the whirlwind of make-believe, a quiet question nestled in her heart: what was it worth if she lost the connection she found while trying to sabotage a date? Crippling uncertainty clawed at her from every angle as she clung to these flitting moments, a beautiful lie riding on the edge of exposure. A storm brewed, and she stood within it, heart racing as darkness whispered of the inevitable truth. Could love survive when built on a foundation of deceit? Emma's laughter, light and airy, resonated within the chic restaurant, yet felt like a distant echo in a vast, unrecognizable hall. Each quip she exchanged with Ethan unfurled layers of her anxiety. It was becoming harder to compartmentalize her life as she navigated the choppy waters of falsehood and genuine interest. Something shifted within her, a quiet but unrelenting urge to step back from the precipice of manipulation. Despite the glamour enveloping her, the urgency of her home life loomed like a heavy cloud, a stark reminder of why she was here, yet the warmth in Ethan's eyes sparked a flicker of hope she hadn't felt in a long time. What if this moment could transcend mere charade? The impulse to reveal her truth wrestled with her fears, tightening her throat. Are you always this spontaneous? Ethan's gaze pierced through the pretense, a layer of sincerity emerging from his playful demeanor. His question hung in the air, pressuring her to respond with authenticity. I guess I'm just tired of playing it safe, Emma replied, the words escaping before she could weigh their repercussions. Could she really let herself be vulnerable in front of someone who lived in a world so beautifully different from hers? Ethan leaned in closer, intrigued. Risk can lead to the unexpected. Take me, for instance. I've spent my life remaining on the right side of ambition, but I still find myself surprised when I step outside that comfort zone. His insight struck Emma, a mirror reflecting her own fears and desires. She wanted more than just survival, she wanted to thrive. But the dichotomy between her dreams and reality was a chasm she couldn't quietly jump across without first laying the groundwork. In that fleeting moment of connection, she realized that perhaps it was time to start building. With every flicker of laughter exchanged between them, Emma felt her walls crumbling, heart pounding in her chest. But could the very act of vulnerability taint the space they had created? She couldn't help but wonder if revealing herself was the truest form of authenticity, a powerful resolve against the backdrop of her otherwise chaotic life. That in her mind, a floodgate of recollections opened, her mother, sitting by the window, trying to paint a vibrant depiction of autumn leaves more real than their faded dwelling. The bills piled upon the kitchen table, reminders of daily struggles pressing down hard on her will to create a life meant for more than just survival. Sometimes, Emma ventured, her voice trembling slightly, I wish I could be like you, living the life you want, not just fighting to keep afloat. Emma, Ethan said softly, his expression changing into something deeper, it's never too late to start. Those words washed over her, a lifeline thrown in a vast sea of uncertainty, and Emma began to visualize a path out of the chaos, a way to blend her aspirations with reality, floating between the worlds of her diner and the lavishness of those sitting around her. Perhaps she could rediscover her passion for painting, not just as a hobby but as a burgeoning career, threading it into the fabric of her existence. Yet beneath the optimism lingered doubt, suffocating her ambition with every heartbeat. What if pursuing this meant risking what she felt growing between them? Could she tread carefully in the tumultuous waters of newfound feelings while balancing her responsibilities? As her internal conflict raged on, the flicker of the dining candle reflected the internal struggle writhing within her, the allure of salvation and the bondage of her plight danced dissonantly in her mind. The hour approached midnight, closing in like a heavy fog, ominous yet inviting. Let us get out of here, Ethan suggested suddenly, a luminous thrill in his eyes. How about an adventure to cap off this unusual evening? Emma's heart raced. The prospect of abandoning the safety of the restaurant comfortably cloaked in deception for the unknown sent shivers down her spine. She faced an innate question, what if this adventure led her towards a potential connection, or tore apart? What little remained of her carefully constructed life? And so, with the laughter of the dining crowd fading behind them, Emma stood on the precipice once more, her hand hovering over the door to what could be caught between the seduction of the unexpected and the gravity of her honesty. What lay ahead could redefine everything, not just for her, but for the growing bond she found in Ethan. Would she step forward, or linger in the shadow of her fears? The air thickened with possibility as she locked eyes with him, and a decision hung palpably between them, a decision that would irrevocably change the course of her life. The city glimmered under the twilight, a constellation of lights glowing against the encroaching darkness. Emma stepped out into the chaos of the street, her heart panting a rhythm of uncertainty and excitement. Ethan's presence enveloped her like a warm blanket, yet she remained fully aware of the precipice she stood upon. The allure of adventure ignited a spark, but the undercurrent of her life weighed heavily, a tether pulling her backward. What do you want to do? Ethan asked, gazing expectantly at her. For a moment, she hesitated, the infinite potential spreading before her like a sprawling canvas, both thrilling and terrifying. I'd love to wander a little, Emma finally replied, allowing herself to breathe into the moment. She could feel her spirit rebelling against the constraints that had long defined her, as though every step away from the restaurant was a deliberate act of defiance. They strolled down the busy boulevard, the cacophony of laughter, music, and distant sirens melding into a vibrant symphony. Emma felt alive, each breath a reminder of possibility, of the dreams that had faded under the weight of daily survival. With every step, she imagined shedding bits of her old self, shedding the dirty apron she wore at the diner and embracing the artist within, the one who longed for expression, for more. "What do you love to do?" Ethan asked, breaking her reverie and prompting her mind to race. Would saying it out loud make it real? "Painting," she managed to say, her voice barely above the bustling sounds around them. "Really? What do you paint?" The question pierced through her facades, settling uncomfortably in her gut. The truth was complicated. "I mostly try to capture nature," she admitted, attempting to frame her passion with self-acceptance. "It started with my mother. She used to paint scenes from our backyard. I guess it's just been a way for me to escape, to imagine the beauty that exists outside my life." Ethan's expression softened into something genuine, a mixture of empathy and curiosity. "You can create beauty, Emma. You should share that with the world," he encouraged, his words feeding the desire buried deep within her. Emma felt the adrenaline of ambitions right alongside her fear creeping back in. Could she truly open herself to the world after living in fear of her reality for so long? She could sense the walls once again threatening to rise, but Ethan's unwavering gaze pulled her back to earth. "I don't know if anyone would even care," she admitted quietly. "Start small," he countered, pushing her to step beyond her doubts. "Even if it's just one piece, show it to someone. You deserve that. You might surprise yourself." His encouragement fanned the embers of her ambition. If she allowed herself to dream and act upon those dreams, could she bridge the gap between who she was and who she wanted to be? But just as resolve began to take root, a wave of anxiety crashed over her. What if she opened herself up, only to discover that she didn't have what it took? What if her feelings for Ethan morphed into something unmanageable, complicating the fragile threads they had begun to weave together? How would she protect them both from the reality that loomed outside their moment? They wandered, the conversation drifting toward lighter topics, laughter exploding between them like confetti caught in the wind. Eventually, they found themselves outside a small gallery, its facade understated yet inviting, hints of life from within casting playful shadows through the stained glass. Emma's heart raced at the thought of entering. "What do you think?" Ethan asked, his eyes alight with enthusiasm. The invitation hung heavily between them, encouraging yet laden with Emma's insecurities. "I think it could be amazing," she said, feeling the weight of indecision press down on her. But deep within, the urge to explore the nurturing possibilities of creativity ignited. The fear tethering her to her past simultaneously fueled her desire for freedom. Could this little gallery be where she first stepped into her artistic awakening? "Let us go inside," she declared, a small crack in her armor revealing a glimpse of boldness she hadn't expressed before. As they moved towards the door, a new tension tightened its grip around Emma's heart. She was not merely stepping into a gallery, she was stepping into her potential. The moment felt transformative, yet fraught with danger. The twisting tension wrapped around her, daring her to question everything she thought she knew about herself. No matter how this night unfolded, she was undeniably at a crossroads, balancing risk and longing. Little did she know, the decisions being laid at her feet were about to pull her into a whirlwind of unforeseen circumstances, challenging everything she believed about love and aspiration. With the doorbell chiming above them, a pivotal choice lay in wait. Emma hadn't yet realized that what awaited her inside would demand more of her than just courage, it could alter her trajectory irrevocably. Would she seize the moment or retreat back to the shadows of her past? As Emma stepped inside the gallery, the ambience transformed into a cradle of creativity and inspiration. Each artwork on the wall whispered untold stories, beckoning her to delve into their depths. The vibrant colors danced in her eyes, igniting the dormant passion within her. She felt a rush of energy, as if the very air encouraged her to embrace her identity as an artist. Ethan moved beside her, his enthusiasm infectious. "Look at that piece," he said, pointing to a sweeping landscape that depicted a sun setting behind rolling hills. "Can you imagine painting something like this?" The comment pulled Emma from her thoughts. "Maybe one day," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. As they walked further into the gallery, the pulse of self-doubt began to resurface, a familiar specter lurking in the corners of her mind. Did she have what it took to create something worthy, something that could resonate with an audience? "Hey, look! There's a painting competition coming up," Ethan said, glancing at a bulletin board filled with colorful announcements. "You should enter." The insistent pull of fear clutched at her throat. "I don't even know if I'm good enough," she responded before she could catch herself. It was infuriating how easily doubt seeped through her veneer of hope. Ethan's eyes narrowed with concern. "You won't know unless you try. Besides, you seem to come alive when you talk about painting. That energy is something special." Emma considered his words, feeling the weight of possibility against her apprehensions. She was so accustomed to holding back, to denying herself the joy of artistic expression, that even imagining entering the competition felt daunting. Yet, the thought flickered like the pulse of neon lights just outside a vibrant beacon calling her to venture beyond her usual confines. As they continued to browse the gallery, Emma identified each painting's style and essence, her analytical brain unlocking the nuances that appealed to her. Suddenly, her apprehension gave way to curiosity. What could she create? What hidden depths of emotion could her own work reveal? Each question burrowed deeper, igniting a hunger for exploration that she had long kept suppressed. They stopped in front of a piece that unsettled her, a chaotic swirl of color, with bold strokes that seemed to carry the weight of the artist's turmoil. This feels raw," Emma murmured, feeling a connection to the turmoil she'd faced in her life. "Exactly. It's real," Ethan said, nodding. "Art doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be honest." The simplicity of that statement resonated with her. She realized that if she wanted to share her world with others, she needed to embrace her truth, even if it felt jagged and untidy. Could vulnerability be the very thing that could transform her art? Suddenly emboldened, Emma turned to Ethan, her heart racing with the thrill of adventure. "What if I entered that competition? What if I showed people what I can do?" A smile broke across Ethan's face, illuminating the dim gallery. "I knew you had it in you. You've already taken that first step tonight." However, a shadow still lingered in her mind, sabotaging her newfound confidence. The fear of rejection was an insidious whisper she couldn't ignore. What if she poured her heart into a piece only to receive criticism? As if sensing her hesitation, Ethan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Remember, no great artist began as one. It takes practice and courage to grow." The words resonated within her like a symphony. It was a stark reminder that nothing of value came without the risk of failure. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but perhaps it was worth pursuing, if only to discover something profound about herself. "I think I actually might do it," she said, the tentative excitement brightening her spirits. With each revolution of her self-belief, she could feel the pull towards creation becoming stronger. As they stepped back into the night air, Emma found herself facing the uncertainty ahead with newfound determination. The world outside felt different now. More vibrant, promising. She could hear her own heartbeat thrumming with excitement, each pulse fueling her ambition, but then, a sudden sound shattered her moment of clarity. A crashing noise echoed from behind them in the gallery, followed by exclamations of surprise. Emma turned, her breath hitching in her throat. She had no idea that the night's twist was just beginning. What lay beyond the gallery door was more than just a collision of canvases, it was about to alter the course of her journey entirely. Would this unforeseen disruption lead to an opportunity or shatter her resolve before it even began? The tension in the air shifted dramatically as the next chapter in her life unfolded before her. The crash echoed through the gallery, slicing through Emma's thoughts like a knife. She turned just in time to see a large canvas topple, colliding with another piece in a domino effect that sent several paintings crashing to the floor. Gasps erupted from the spectators, mingling with the sound of paint splattering and glass shattering. Her heart raced. This was a space for art, not chaos, and yet here it was disorder blooming in a place that thrived on creativity. Emma felt the onlookers' anticipation shift to concern, their eyes darting to the distracted artist who had caused the commotion. The culprit was a flustered young man, hastily trying to gather the fallen pieces, his face flushed with embarrassment. "Hey, are you okay?" Ethan called out, stepping forward with concern. Emma stood frozen, her instincts battling against the urge to help. In that moment, hesitation gripped her. Was she ready to step in, to make a difference when she still grappled with her own insecurities? With every moment passing, suggestions of camaraderie flickered in her mind, yet the storm of self-doubt raged fiercely. What would art historians and critics think if she intervened now, knowing she herself struggled to find her voice? But as she absorbed the scene, the urgency in the young man's movements, the art lover's collective gasps, she felt a whisper of resilience deep within her. Maybe art is chaotic, she murmured to herself, a truth crystallizing. Perhaps in the messiness lay a beauty unseen, much like her own journey. She took a breath, summoning her courage, and stepped forward to lend a hand. "Here, let me help you," Emma said, her voice steadier than she felt. As she leaned down to pick up a broken frame, their eyes met for a fleeting second. There was a shared understanding in that glance, a recognition of vulnerability that transcended words. The young man's relief visibly washed over him, multiplying her burgeoning sense of purpose. As they worked together, the fragments of shattered art did not overshadow the connection that blossomed. "I'm really sorry," he stammered, his hands trembling slightly as he handed her an angled piece of canvas. "I shouldn't have rushed. I'm just trying to make a name for myself in painting, but it's harder than I thought." Emma straightened, feeling her own narrative woven into his. "I get that," she said, her voice infused with sincerity. "It can be overwhelming to put your art out there, especially when you're just starting." In that moment, she found another piece of herself, a newfound confidence emerging from empathy, a bridge forged between their artistic journeys. They shared a laugh, the tension easing. As they finished clearing the mess, curious onlookers began to applaud their teamwork, a small yet potent show of validation that bolstered Emma's fragile spirit. With a burgeoning network of support forming around her, she considered the competition once more. The notion of presenting her art felt less daunting now, painted in the colors of shared experience. Rejection might still linger on the periphery, but she could transform the fear into something powerful, something that propelled her forward. Just as she contemplated the steps ahead, the gallery owner emerged with an air of authority, his voice booming over the remnants of chaos. "While mistakes can be frustrating, they teach us resilience. I've witnessed such camaraderie before, and it's what art is truly about, finding connection even when things fall apart." Emma felt the truth resonate deeply within her. Encircled by newfound friends, she realized that vulnerability could lead to unscripted beauty. Standing tall amid the wreckage of canvases, she felt the tug of ambition pull stronger than ever. But just as clarity began to settle, the gallery owner turned to her, a knowing look in his eyes. "You, my dear, have something special to give. How about you show us what you're capable of?" Suddenly, all eyes were on her, an expectant hush draping over the crowd. Was this her moment, a first step toward showcasing her art in a way she hadn't dared envision? As her heart raced and mind spun, a question loomed larger than the chaos around her: could she finally seize the opportunity to create, to express, and perhaps to shine? The weight of the gallery's gaze bore down on her like a spotlight illuminating the path ahead. With uncertainty crackling in the air, she stood on the precipice of a decision that could reshape her destiny, her world brimming with possibilities yet to be explored. The pulse of artistry beckoned, and this time, the call felt unmistakably clear. Emma stood in the spotlight of the gallery, her body frozen as if caught in a painting she didn't want to be a part of. The silence was laden with expectations, a sculpted tension that hung heavy in the air. She could feel her heart thundering in her chest, each beat echoing the doubts that swirled within her. Am I good enough? Her mind wrestled with apprehension and the emerging spark of courage ignited from the shared experience just moments ago. The gallery owner's words threaded through her consciousness, reminding her of the communal beauty of art, a lesson learned amidst scattered fragments of canvas. She glanced at the young man beside her, a mirror of her own brewing uncertainty, and for a moment, their shared experiences lent her strength. Yes, she stammered, and instinctively took a step forward. The moment of warmth from their earlier camaraderie rippled through her, nudging her forward. "I'd love to." A buzz rippled through the crowd, and the gallery owner nodded, a slight smile breaking his authoritative demeanor. Emma felt a propulsion of energy course through her, but beneath that excitement lingered the visceral sting of self-doubt. Was this truly her moment? Would her work resonate, or would it be another voice lost in the cacophony of artistry? "Just follow your heart," the gallery owner encouraged, sensing her hesitation. His words echoed. "Art isn't about perfection, it's about expression." Those words ignited a memory at a time when she had boxed herself into the notion that everything needed to be flawless, leading to the stagnation of her creative process. With the clarity of his encouragement, Emma recognized the parallels. Her art had always been an extension of herself, flawed yet vibrant. She took a deep breath, releasing the tension that coiled within. "Would you mind holding this?" she said to the young man, handing him a piece of her unfinished artwork. The motion felt symbolic, it was a way to involve him, to diminish her own isolation in this spotlight moment. "I won't be long," Emma assured, looking at the crowd as she focused on the easel sitting alone against the wall. Step by step, she pulled herself closer to what she had always feared, the unveiling of her artistry. With each stroke of color she retrieved from the palette, memories of early struggles flooded her mind. The time spent trying to discover her style, the nights filled with frustration, and the physical canvas that had once felt like a prison instead transformed into an open place for freedom. Passion replaced doubt, she was creating again, feeling the brush glide over the canvas. Each stroke was a declaration of her journey, the hardships, the victories, and the connections. The room grew silent, transfixed by her dedication, as if the audience could feel the waves of emotion spilling from her fingertips, but beneath her focus, a flicker of doubt lingered. Would they see her? The internal voice that once mocked now faded, replaced by the realization that true vulnerability often resonates most profoundly. As she stepped back to assess her work, the audience leaned in. "Wow, that's incredible!" the young man exclaimed, pulling her thoughts away from their tumultuous depths. His eyes shone with admiration, and she felt a wave of warmth wash over her. For the first time, she was not merely creating in isolation, her art was connecting her to others, bridging gaps she thought unbridgeable. She glanced at the faces around her, their expressions a blend of anticipation and appreciation, a validation she had long craved. Confidence surged through her like a river breaking through a dam, and for the first time, it began to feel like her fears were dwindling, but then the gallery owner's voice broke through. "Emma, are you ready to share your story behind this piece?" All eyes shifted toward her, and a tempest of anxiety stirred once more in her gut. The weight of their gazes, the significance of the moment, combined with the raw vulnerability she had exposed, bloomed like an open wound. This question was a test, unmatched by the previous chaos. It was an invitation to publicly expose her deepest insecurities and greatest hopes. As she stood there, another realization settled in. This was not merely about art, it was an opening for her own self-acceptance, a chance to finally embrace her voice amidst the noise. She took a step closer to the mic, breathing deeply, preparing to confront what lay ahead. A revelation dawned, the time had come to face herself, to share her story. It was a moment poised at the edge of transformation, and she could feel it calling to her. Would she find the words, the courage, to articulate her truths? Could this be the catalyst for a new chapter in her life, or would the fear pull her back into silence? Her heart raced anew, the crowd hanging on the precipice of her response. As she gathered herself to speak, the first few words poised on her lips felt immensely powerful. Would this be the moment that finally defined her? Feeling the weight of the crowd's anticipation, Emma's breath hitched in her throat. She fought against the urge to succumb to the silence, the insistence of the moment clamoring for release. Each face bore stories of their own, hopeful artists, critics, eager spectators, all woven together by her artwork. And yet, it was still her voice, the one she had questioned so many times, that hung suspended in the air. Art, she began, the word quivering, is not just color on canvas. It is my pulse, my heartbeat, my way of processing a world that often feels overwhelming. The words flowed slowly at first, as if unfurling like petals from a tightly clenched bud, each syllable carrying the weight of her unspoken fears. As she spoke, Emma felt every bit of her experience cascading through her, those early, desperate nights when the brush felt foreign in her hands, and the crippling self-doubt that threatened to swallow her whole. It reflects not only my joy but my pain, my failures, and my successes, vulnerabilities that I often try to hide. The recognition of each obstacle transformed her anxiety into a vibrant tapestry of understanding. The gallery, a transient gathering of souls, felt as if it were holding its breath along with her. She looked in the eyes of the young man who had held her unfinished artwork, and in those eyes, she found a flicker of understanding. He was a mirror. She was witnessing her own longings reflected back, the desire to connect, to be seen, to share. With every eloquent statement, she shed layers of uncertainty, her voice gaining strength. This piece, she gestured to her artwork. It represents the struggle of finding beauty in imperfection. Every mistake has led me here. It's a reminder that creation is not just about the final product, it's about the journey. The gallery owner nodded approvingly. But something deeper pulled at Emma's heart. This was about more than art. It was a crucial step toward embracing her identity fully. Wasn't she also a person full of imperfections, both in her art and life? The bridge between her inner world and the outer perceptions began to dissolve, revealing a shared humanity amidst different experiences. As her words flowed, an epiphany hit her. She was no longer asking for validation, instead, she was offering her truth. It was a lesson she had needed to learn, a lesson in bold authenticity. Who she was extended beyond the strokes of paint. Embracing her artistry meant embracing herself. But just as the thought echoed in her mind, doubt brushed past her again, whispering insidiously. What if they didn't resonate with her story? What if vulnerability became a weapon in the face of critique? The specter of judgment loomed large, yet she refused to bow. She could feel the audience leaning closer, latching onto her sincerity. With newfound resolve, she continued. I believe we all carry our stories, and sometimes we must share them. It's confronting, it's terrifying, but it's also liberating. Each word was a declaration, learning to trust the space her voice occupied, and then, she paused, absorbing the palpable energy in the room. The faces mirrored understanding, a faint glimmer of recognition shining back at her. Here, amidst the white walls and soft lights, she felt the power of connection unfold. It was right to be vulnerable. As she finished, the applause erupted, a thunderous sound that swelled around her like a tidal wave. Emma felt herself rising with it, no longer bound by the chains of self-doubt. Instead, she was buoyed by acceptance, not just from her audience, but within herself. Yet, as she stood in the adrenaline rush of the moment, a sudden thought infiltrated the exhilaration. What would happen next? The confrontation with vulnerability had opened doors, but what lay behind them? Could her newfound acceptance propel her into uncharted territories, or would it expose unseen scars? The gallery owner approached with pride, offering her a glance filled with admiration. You have a gift, Emma, he said, his words both an affirmation and a challenge. Now, how will you further embrace this gift? His inquiry hung in the air, tantalizingly unresolved, beckoning Emma to take another leap into the unknown. What would her next creation look like? What further truths would she uncover? The crossroads before her was exhilarating, a burgeoning landscape of possibilities. All she needed to do now was choose her path. In the aftermath of her speech, Emma's mind swirled with possibilities, but clarity was elusive. The applause still echoed in her ears, a resonating affirmation mingled with uncertainty. The gallery owner's words, filled with both praise and expectation, lingered as a haunting reminder of the path ahead. Back in her studio, surrounded by the remnants of her creative process, she felt an unexpected surge of energy. The room was cluttered with empty canvases, unrecognizable sketches, and discarded paint tubes, embodying both chaos and potential. Each item whispered of ideas untapped, stories yet to be told. It was here that she felt most vulnerable, a familiar pang of discomfort stirring within her. Yet, the exhilaration from the gallery was infectious, urging her to confront that discomfort head-on. Emma's fingers danced over the rough surface of a new canvas, each brushstroke a mix of trepidation and excitement. She was filled with the desire to explore her artistry in fresh ways, not just for herself, but to honor the connection she had crafted with her audience. The colors began to blend into one another, chaotic yet vibrant, reflecting the tumult of emotions coursing through her. But as she immersed herself in the work, doubt began to slip into the corners of her mind once again. What if they want more? She thought, questioning the depth of her next piece. The thrill of expressing vulnerability collided with the anxiety of expectation. The weight of having captivated her audience suggested that whatever she created next would need to be impactful, meaningful. But was she ready to take that leap? She remembered the young man's gaze from the gallery, the intense reflection and understanding that resonated when she shared her art. That was the essence of connection, it was an articulation of shared experiences. But how could she ensure that her next creation would evoke the same response? Should I focus on a specific theme? Dive deeper into my past? Emma pondered. It was a moment drenched in self-reflection. She understood that the honesty she unveiled was her strength, but exposing her past, the failures, the dark moments, was an unsettling proposition. Would she be able to navigate the emotions closely tied to those memories? Drawing a deep breath, Emma stepped back, her heart racing. She longed for authenticity in her work, yet the fear of stepping too close to her inner turmoil was daunting. It was imperative to strike a balance between vulnerability and the risk it entailed. She set the brush down, feeling the weight of her decision like a gravitational pull. It was more than just creating another piece, it was about exploration, about embracing conflicts that defined her. What if she tapped into her past not merely as subjects to paint but as layers of herself requiring acknowledgement and understanding? As she turned the idea over in her mind, envisioning how she'd manifest it on canvas, the challenge ahead clarified itself. This was not an attempt to elicit sympathy, it was an invitation for deeper engagement. She could cultivate a narrative that resonated on multiple levels, inviting her audience to be part of her journey, reflecting and discovering their paths too, but Emma knew that the next step demanded risk. The canvas would serve as a window into her soul, pulling at threads she had kept tightly woven. With the prospect of potential healing and discovery came the fear of exposing what she had long buried. Determination and apprehension warred within her, creating a tempest of longing to advance professionally while striving for personal authenticity. Emma resolved to push through the fear, recognizing that the essence of art lay in its power to heal and connect deeply with others. With an unexpected clarity washing over her, she picked up her brush again and started a fresh sketch. The exploration wouldn't be without strife, it was the trials of creation that held value. Later that evening, as she stood back to assess her work, a strange sense of calm enveloped her. The battle within might still rage on, but she was no longer merely an artist confined to colors and shapes. She was a storyteller inviting her audience into the vulnerability of her experience. Suddenly, a text notification disrupted her thoughts. A message from the gallery owner flickered on her phone screen, urging her to meet and discuss the next steps involving her art in community engagement. Emma's heart raced. Could this be the moment to leverage her art into a platform for shared stories? What awaited was unclear, but she sensed the pendulum of her journey swinging once more toward a new opportunity. Resolute, she moved to reply, an electric anticipation thrumming through her veins. The pivotal moment awaited. Could this next chapter redefine her path after all? Emma could hardly contain her excitement as she walked into the cafe where she was to meet the gallery owner. The scent of freshly ground coffee filled the air, invigorating her spirit further. She felt the weight of anticipation pressing on her, the kind that thrummed with possibility. Today felt different. This could be the breakthrough she needed, not just for her art but for her own evolution as a creator. Seated at a corner table, Emma tapped her fingers against the wood grain, her mind racing through various scenarios. Were they going to discuss her art prints for sale or a potential exhibition? Was there room for collaboration on projects that would enable her to delve deeper into her personal past, the very essence of her next works? Surrounded by patrons absorbed in their own conversations, she reflected on just how pivotal her connection with the gallery could be. The gallery owner arrived, his demeanor a blend of casual confidence and professional poise. They exchanged pleasantries before diving into the purpose of their meeting. His excitement about her potential was palpable as he laid out plans for community engagement projects, suggesting she could lead workshops that not only showcased her art but encouraged others to articulate their own stories through creativity. "You have an uncommon ability to connect with your audience, Emma," he said, his voice steady and sincere. "I believe your art can catalyze healing in others, inviting them to confront their own narratives. Let us explore how to make that happen." Her pulse quickened at the thought. This was not merely a chance to exhibit her work, but an opportunity to create dialogue, to become a vessel of transformation. But the magnitude of this proposition brought a chill of uncertainty. Could she lead others through their vulnerabilities while navigating her own? As she nodded in agreement, enthusiasm mingled with apprehension. Her internal dialogue spiraled. What if I can't connect? What if I can't inspire them like I hope? Just then, a sudden flicker of insight pierced through her anxiety. She had spent years suppressing her own narrative out of fear of judgment. There was no better time to embrace it. The commitment would push her boundaries, yes, but perhaps this was the crucible she needed for her growth. Leading a workshop meant she'd have to confront her fears openly, not just for herself, but to mentor others embarking on similar journeys. As the gallery owner elaborated on his vision, Emma found herself consumed not just by the possibility of gallery exhibits but by the urge to shape a community narrative through her art. Each word he spoke resonated deeply, a quiet affirmation that her voice could matter beyond the confines of her studio. "Let us set a date for the first workshop," he urged, glancing at her with an intensity that made her resolve harden. "I believe we can fill this with powerful stories, yours and others." A surge of determination coursed through Emma. This would not be merely an exploration of art, it would be a testament to resilience, a collaboration of healing through creativity. "Let us do it," Emma replied, her voice steady and resolute, feeling the contours of her purpose solidify. For once, she was not just responding to external expectations, she was taking control of her narrative. As they discussed logistics, Emma felt a calmness creeping in. She was on the brink of crafting something bigger, intertwining her personal journey with the ambitions of others seeking healing. But just as they finalized plans, her phone buzzed again with another notification, revealing a message that made her heart drop, a reminder of a past she thought she had put behind her. Emma's thoughts raced back to unresolved pain, threatening to unearth all the vulnerabilities she had just resolved to face. This new project had already begun to unearth layers of her story, and now it seemed they were rushing to the surface far faster than she anticipated. The moment hung in the air, a delicate balance of hope and fear. She was ready to embrace her journey fully armed, yet acutely aware of the shadows lurking behind her. How would she navigate the depths of her past while guiding others through their own? This was only the beginning of her story, but Emma sensed an impending confrontation with the very elements she had sought to distance herself from. What awaited her was unclear, but as she looked up, determination met uncertainty, two forces now irrevocably intertwined in her quest for authenticity and healing. In the days that followed, Emma immersed herself in her plans for the workshops, a flurry of creativity mingling with self-examination. The gallery owner's faith in her ignited a dormant fire, compelling her to explore not just her artistry but the unique power it held to foster connection. Each time she conceptualized a project, the duality of her excitement and anxiety pushed her further into a transformative orbit. As she prepared her curriculum, Emma found herself revisiting the tumultuous shards of her past, grappling with the very emotions she had once feared to face. Each lesson plan was an invitation not just for her participants, but also for herself to strip away the layers of self-doubt and share her narrative. It evolved from being a mandatory task into something profound, a sacred act of vulnerability, both liberating and terrifying. On the day of the first workshop, as she arrived at the gallery, her heart surged with trepidation. Room after room filled with vibrant pieces of art adorned the walls. The mingling scents of paint and wood mingled in the air while echoing laughter and chatter resonated softly through the open space. Emma's pulse quickened as she visualized the eager faces awaiting her guidance. "I can do this," she murmured to herself, absorbing the energy pulsating through the space. But just as she steadied her resolve, mounting uncertainties crept in. What if she stumbled over her words? What if her story didn't resonate? With each challenge echoed in her mind, she pressed her hands against the table, hoping the physical contact would ground her spiraling thoughts. And then the moment arrived. Participants streamed through the door, vibrant individuals from different walks of life, each carrying fragments of their own stories. The bustling warmth enveloped her, and she felt an odd familiarity with the faces. They, too, shared a layer of hesitation wrapped around stories yearning for release. "Welcome, everyone," she called, her voice resonating with unexpected clarity. As she introduced herself and outlined her vision for the day, the nerves melted away, replaced by the conviction that she wielded something valuable. This was not a classroom filled with judgment, it was a supportive sanctuary for exploration and expression. As the workshop unfolded, Emma sensed the atmosphere shift from tentative to engaged, a whirlwind of creativity swirling around the room. Participants showcased their sketches, revealing their most guarded emotions, fears, hopes, yearning for connection, memories etched into every stroke. Each sharing terrified and exhilarated her, for intertwined in their narratives were echoes of her own struggles. When it was her turn to present, she felt the weight of the room's expectation resting heavily on her shoulders. Standing before her audience, Emma realized that the workshop wasn't merely about painting, it was about healing. "Art," she began, her voice steady, "is a reflection of our journey. Each piece we create is an embodiment of who we are, and our stories can serve to connect us." Gradually, as her words flowed, the room fell silent, and a palpable energy shimmered in the air. She shared anecdotes of her fears, her unrelenting battle with self-doubt, and how embracing her truth had reshaped her narrative into one defined by courage and authenticity. As she spoke, she witnessed a cascade of understanding ripple through the crowd, eyes glistening and nodding affirmatively at her vulnerability. They began to share their thoughts, creating a rich tapestry of collective wisdom. At that moment, Emma realized just how transformational her journey had become. The act of baring her soul and navigating the fragility of her emotions propelled her into realms of healing from which she once sought escape. With every layer she released, she stepped into her truth not only as an artist but as a mentor guiding others through their complexities. As the workshop concluded, she felt an exhilarating wave of validation wash over her, a feeling welded of being recognized for who she truly was, not the person molded by the limitations of her past. Participants lingered longer, sharing warm words of gratitude and heartfelt connections forged through their shared explorations. Amongst them was a woman who had captured Emma's attention, her emotion-laden portrait shimmering with the rawness of experience. "You've inspired me to share my life's story through my art," she said, her voice trembling yet filled with warmth. Emma's heart swelled, reflecting the miracle of connection they had achieved. It was more than just creativity unleashed, it was an awakening of self, a healing balm to the wounds that once felt insurmountable. That night, as Emma returned home, she caught sight of her mother's old painting leaning against the wall, landscapes that once felt like dreams out of reach now outshone by the vibrant colors of hope and transformation she had embraced. The canvas began to look like a starting point rather than a finished product. Emma recognized that she had conquered her fears not just as an artist but as a person, forging her identity firmly within the framework of vulnerability. The new chapter before her sparkled with potential, held not merely by the allure of art but built upon the foundations of authenticity and connection. She felt solid confidence surge through her veins, a foundation resilient enough to support the life she envisioned, a life where creativity and personal truth entwined, painting possibilities far beyond the confines of her past. Emma had begun her journey searching for support and clarity, she found empowerment instead. Each moment held potential, each breath a brushstroke guiding her toward the masterpiece of her existence. This was not just achievement, it was earnest fulfillment and irrevocable transformation of self. With every canvas brought to life through empathy and discovery, her art would continue to be a bridge connecting hearts and stories together, a living testament that vulnerability can lead, not only to revelation but to unwavering strength. As she closed her eyes that night, she smiled, resonating with a profound truth. The journey had just begun, their stories were now intertwined, each painting a step into a brilliant unknown awaiting expression. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.